WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett makes a shocking AEW debut last night, siding with Jay Lethal, attacking Darby Allin, and in addition to that, has been announced to have a front office role in the company. We've got the latest details on that. Shibata is back in AEW and will be challenging for a title this Friday on Rampage, and will also be challenging a top star moving forward in AEW. Colt Cabana is back in All Elite Wrestling. Wonder what CM Punk thinks of that. He challenged Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor World Championship last night. AEW has also teased the returns of the Elite, the House of Black, and Saraya is going to give an update on her in-ring future. Plus, the Women's World Championship match has been announced for Full Gear. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Last night was Dynamite live on TBS, and there were some pretty eventful returns, debuts, surprises on the show. Brian Alvarez said going into the show that a lot of people would be talking, and they are. Whether they're for the right reasons or not, we'll have to wait and see. But let's get straight into it, starting with the AEW debut. You can see him right there. The Last Outlaw, Double J, that's JEFFJARETT. That's Jeff Jarrett, is in AEW. Now, over the past couple of weeks, All Elite Wrestling stars Darby Allin and Jay Lethal have been going back and forth. After Allin defeated Lethal on Dynamite's 3-year anniversary show and Lethal crushed Allin with a solid steel garage door last week, the two met once more in the ring on Wednesday's edition of Dynamite in the opening match. However, unlike the first time they met, Lethal would get the win over Allin, but he wouldn't do it alone. A fake Sting showed up, and they were teasing this all the way through the match, that Jay Lethal had this friend that knew so much about Darby Allin and knew all of the secrets about Darby Allin. And this fake Sting, people thought it was going to be a big surprise. Mask came off, and it was Cole Carter, which everyone went, huh? What? So Colt Carter's moved from the factory to Jay Lethal's faction. He attacked Allin. It didn't get much of a reception, it must be said, but that wouldn't be the end of the night for Allin, however, as a wrestling legend has turned AEW into my world, yes, as the real Sting's music filled the arena, and many people thought we were going to see the icon. Darby Allin and the fans in attendance anticipated his arrival, but instead of Sting, however, Allin was blindsided from behind with a guitar to the head from none other than WWE Hall of Famer Double J Jeff Jarrett. After attacking Allin with a guitar, he proclaimed, quote, "Darby Allin, you just got a lesson from the Last Outlaw." Jarrett made it clear that Allin's longtime ally Sting is his greatest weakness before sending a message to everyone in AEW. Jarrett's association, of course, with Lethal goes all the way back to their days in TNA and Impact Wrestling. They recently reconnected as the two joined forces to take on the team of Ric Flair and Andrade El Idolo back at Ric Flair's last match in July. Jarrett's history and rivalry with Allin's friend and mentor Sting goes back even further to their days in the NWA, WCW, and TNA. With this all lined up already for Jarrett in AEW, he looks to continue to leave his mark on the wrestling world because Jarrett is now officially All Elite. And it must be said, it's not just as a talent that Jeff Jarrett is coming in, because Tony Khan has confirmed that Jeff Jarrett is a director. He holds a director role in All Elite Wrestling. Tony Khan tweeted out just a couple of hours ago, the AEW president, saying, quote, "Welcome to AEW Dynamite to the new AEW Director of Business Development, Jeff Jarrett. I look forward to expanding the AEW live events calendar in 2023 and in future years with Double J," and spoke about Raphael Mori and also Chris Harrington. Of course, they're in charge of live events as well, and our entire great AEW team. Jeff Jarrett is All Elite. Very, very interesting, certainly, and it looks like that, according to Tony Khan and according to this new role for Jeff Jarrett, Khan's tweet has seemed to suggest that AEW will be holding house shows starting in 2023. The young promotion last held a non-televised live event in April 2021 titled The House Always Wins. There were also several AEW house shows held as part of the Jericho Cruise series in 2020. Earlier this year, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer revealed that AEW was against the idea of doing house shows since they're, quote, "not cost-effective to organize." It appears, though, there's been a shift in the mindset within the promotion, and Jarrett will be instrumental in taking AEW on the road starting in 2023. Now, this is a surprise for a variety of reasons, one being that Jarrett held a position with WWE very similar to this role very recently. Jarrett was previously WWE Senior Vice President of Live Events until he departed from the company in August, shortly after Vince McMahon's resignation from the company. Jarrett's job would subsequently be taken by the returning Road Dogg Brian James. It was interesting because I think Jarrett came into that job in April, something around that time. He was only in position, he was only in situ for a couple of months before resigning or before leaving the company and Brian James coming in. So there are so many different things to think about when it comes to Jeff Jarrett coming in. Jeff Jarrett, this guy, he has a knack. He has a knack for making money, doesn't he? He's been everywhere. He has been literally everywhere, whether it's Jim Crockett Promotions, the NWA, WWE, TNA, WCW, AEW, you name it, GF, Global Force Wrestling. This guy's been everywhere. And he does have a huge amount of experience in the business, and certainly does have a huge amount of experience when it comes to the business side of pro wrestling, the live event side of pro wrestling, and he's got experience of being in that role with WWE, again, for a short period of time. I think that his greatest asset to the company won't be as a talent on screen. It will be in his director role. And AEW going on the road in 2023 is certainly interesting because that's never been the model. Since the very start of AEW, Tony Khan's been adamant it's a television-focused company, i.e. the bread and butter of the company comes from television, producing television shows, whether it's Dynamite, Rampage, whatever. They only have 2 or 3 dates a week. They are their television tapings, and that's it. Because, as he said, the live event business was dying, and the majority of revenue in pro wrestling nowadays, and it's true, comes from television deals. So it'll be interesting to see, are they going to be opening up more live events? Are we going to see a situation whereby you're going to have 2 or 3 nights a week AEW on the road touring? Can they even draw? At the moment, you know, they're drawing okay for their television tapings, but certainly not as good as they were a year ago or a couple of years ago. The shine has worn off a little bit, and certainly it will be interesting to think that AEW has confidence they can go out on the road and hit some smaller markets and still draw a decent crowd. That'll be interesting to see, certainly, when it comes to that. So that's certainly different. Maybe, again, that's the answer to having this big bloated roster, is we're going to have touring brands, maybe 2 touring brands in AEW and Ring of Honor. I'm not sure. So certainly it was interesting to see Jeff Jarrett. I don't think anyone on their bingo card this year expected Jeff Jarrett to show up in AEW. One thing I will say about it, though, credit to Double J, is he looks to be in absolutely fantastic shape. I noticed it earlier this year when he was at Ric Flair's last match. He looked to be in really some of the best shape we've seen him in a really long time. Jeff Jarrett's never been a body guy or anything like that, but you saw it last night on Dynamite. He looks great. He recently celebrated as well, I think it's 5 years of sobriety. So, what a year. What a year for Jeff Jarrett. Really, what a year. He's appeared again on he was a guest referee in a big match at SummerSlam, the Tag Team Championship match. That weekend, he wrestled in Ric Flair's last match. Now he's in AEW, and he's in another director's role. I mean, Jeff Jarrett is everywhere, certainly. So, I, again, didn't see that coming. Let me know your thoughts on AEW seemingly going to touring next year as well. That's going to be fascinating. It wasn't the only shocking return to AEW or debut or surprise last night, because New Japan Pro Wrestling star Katsuyori Shibata was revealed as Orange Cassidy's dream opponent during last night's edition of Dynamite, after retaining his All-Atlantic Championship against Luchasaurus and Rey Fenix in a 3-way bout. Cassidy was ambushed by his arch-rival Pac, only to be rescued by Shibata in a surprising post-match segment. Cassidy would then grant Shibata a title match for Friday's live episode of AEW Rampage in Atlantic City, New Jersey. As per stipulation, the winner of Wednesday's All-Atlantic City Dream match had the option of picking an opponent for their choosing to defend the All-Atlantic title against at the Jim Whelan Boardwalk Hall on Friday, and he chose the New Japan star. Shibata was last seen on AEW programming at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view back in June, where he similarly rescued Cassidy from the post-match beatdown at the hands of Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. Shibata was forced into early retirement in 2017 due to a subdural hematoma. He last wrestled a match against Ren Narita at Wrestle Kingdom 16 earlier this year. Friday's match against Cassidy will mark his third match since his 5-minute exhibition against Zack Sabre Jr. at last year's G1 Climax 31. Shibata, as I mentioned, wasn't the only surprise. Jeff Jarrett was another one. And it would appear that the plans don't stop there, because a shock AEW plan for Bryan Danielson may have also been revealed, coinciding with the return of Katsuyori Shibata, making his surprise return on Dynamite on Wednesday, because it would appear that this could be setting up, in addition to the angle we saw last night, a future match between the Blackpool Combat Club's Bryan Danielson and Shibata that could be on the card. As per Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Shibata has named 2 matches he wants inside of an AEW ring. This is what Meltzer had to say, quote, Shibata told AEW that he had 2 matches he wanted in AEW, Orange Cassidy and Bryan Danielson. So they're going to work on doing both of them. Obviously, Cassidy was the first one, and he's free this week, so they made it this week. So it would appear that maybe back in June, Shibata told AEW and told New Japan, I want to work Orange Cassidy, and I want to work Danielson. It would appear, certainly, and again, he said that inside of an AEW ring. And the best time to do the Cassidy one is Friday for Rampage, and Danielson, that has to really be on a pay-per-view. What that pay-per-view will be, don't know if it'll be Full Gear, could be Revolution next year, could be All Out. Then we might have to wait. There are still, obviously, concerns about Shibata, because, as I mentioned, since he returned to in-ring competition, he barely had any matches. He had that 5-minute exhibition match. He had the match earlier this year at Wrestle Kingdom, and by all accounts, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but by all accounts, he kind of went off script a little bit, and New Japan officials were kind of freaking out because he was doing stuff that maybe he shouldn't have been able to do. I don't know what it's going to look like Friday on Rampage, and it's a title match too, so AEW doesn't really do disqualifications, and they don't really do non-finishes for title matches, but at the same time, Shibata, is he going to come into AEW to lose and put over Orange Cassidy? I don't think so, but at the same time, Orange Cassidy's just won the All-Atlantic Championship, but at the same time, it's still Shibata. I could see a situation, and I think this might be what happens here, where Shibata wins, and then eventually it sets up Shibata versus Bryan Danielson for the All-Atlantic Championship. Maybe it's at Wrestle Kingdom in January. Maybe it's an AEW pay-per-view further down the line. I'm not sure, but I'm fascinated. I suppose maybe a better phrase is morbidly curious as to how they're going to do this and how they're going to pull it off, and just how much contact we're going to see. Again, I recall New Japan officials being a bit perturbed by how far Shibata went back in January. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but certainly it was a surprise. Speaking of surprises, Colt Cabana is back in AEW, and if you ever thought that, if you were wondering what the situation was with CM Punk and AEW, this is a perfect example, because in, I guess, what could be perceived as a massive middle finger to CM Punk, and certainly Tony Khan siding with the Elite and siding with someone that isn't Punk, Colt Cabana is officially back in All Elite Wrestling. On last night's edition of Dynamite, Cabana was revealed as the mystery opponent for Chris Jericho's open challenge to any former Ring of Honor champion that wanted a shot at his ROH World Championship. While he ultimately came up short, the crowd in Baltimore, Maryland made it clear they were happy to see him. Cabana, of course, hasn't been seen on AEW programming since appearing on the March 8th edition of Dark, during which he and former Dark Order partner Alan 5 Angel suffered a defeat at the hands of the Butcher and the Blade. As previously noted, it was believed by members of the AEW locker room that Cabana's absence was in part due to former AEW World Champion CM Punk's influence in AEW. Most recently, Cabana had been part of the Ring of Honor brand, making appearances on the pre-show before April's Supercard of Honor and July's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view after signing an extension for his contract. Punk, meanwhile, hasn't been seen in AEW since the notorious brawl following the All Out pay-per-view between him, his friend and trainer Ace Steel, the Elite, and after Punk made comments at the post-show media scrum about their performance in their roles as executive vice presidents, and went on a tirade about his fractured relationship with Scott Colton, also known as Colt Cabana. Punk was stripped of the AEW World Championship days later. Reports have since surfaced that Punk is in talks with Tony Khan to have his contract bought out, but neither party has chosen to confirm it just yet. It was quite funny as well, because there certainly was a lot of reaction on social media, not just from fans, but also from AEW talent themselves. Trent Barretta of the Best Friends took to Twitter and reshared a clip of Cabana's entrance. In the accompanying caption, he wrote, quote, "For the boys," suggesting he was happy to see him on television once again. Best Friends member wasn't the only wrestler to react positively to Cabana's return. The Bunny wrote, "Hell yeah," and John Silver tweeted, "Boom, boom." So Cabana is back, and as I mentioned, certainly you could argue that's an indication of where things are going. I saw a lot of polarizing reaction, to say the least, on social media about this. Was this a slight to CM Punk? Well, I suppose technically it has to be, right? Colt Cabana, has been in the eye of the storm regarding all of this. He's never had his say and anything like that, and the rumors about his status with All Elite Wrestling have been a start in all of this. And certainly you could perceive what's going on in AEW right now. The Elite are returning. There was another promo for them this week. We'll touch on that in a second. Colt Cabana wrestled in a featured match against a guy that allegedly went up to CM Punk after the incident at All Out and said, "You're a cancer and a detriment to the locker room." This is a sign, I certainly perceived it as, of AEW moving forward without Punk. It did feel like a statement. You can't argue that it didn't. It absolutely felt like a statement, and of course, the announcers didn't reference anything like that, but certainly it felt like a statement of this is a Punk-less company, and CM Punk will not be returning, and I certainly... You could think that CM Punk, if he was watching, I doubt he was watching, but I'm sure the word would have got back to him about this, would take it as, okay, I definitely am going to be out of here. And even if he knew that anyway, he's negotiating a buyout and an exit from the company. But I think it's very clear that AEW have made their decision. I thought the match wasn't that great, it must be said. I thought Cabana looks really rusty. And Jericho, was trying his best, but it just, I didn't feel like it worked at all. And the crowd, I thought, was actually, the Baltimore gave him a good ovation, but the match itself, I thought the crowd was actually quite quiet for. But Cabana's back in AEW. How long it will last, I don't know. Will he be on television next week? Probably not. I think it was more of a statement than having a great match itself. Speaking of returns, the Elite, once again, they were teased to be coming back to AEW after a mysterious vignette last week. They got another trio last night on Dynamite. AEW teased the Elite's return to television with a vignette during Dynamite. The new video showed someone digitally replacing the Elite with Death Triangle as the AEW Trios World Tag Team Champions and putting the trio on the cover of an AEW graphic for Dynamite and Rampage. Of course, AEW originally aired the Elite's return teaser during Dynamite last week. It's presume that the Elite are likely to go after the Trios Tag Team Championships that they never lost, seemingly facing off against Death Triangle, even though there has been teased that there are fractures in the Death Triangle relationship prior to the All-Atlantic Championship match last night. Ray Phoenix was being interviewed backstage. Pat came up to him and basically said, "Use this hammer," and the Lucha Brothers were a bit perturbed by that, but it would appear that, again, the Elite are on their way back. I would suggest we're probably going to get the Elite versus Death Triangle at Full Gear, which the Elite will probably win, and plans will then carry on from where originally they were meant to be following All Out. I think that's where this one's going. It wasn't the only teaser of a return of a faction, though. The House of Black are on their way back, that rhymes, to AEW. It appears Malachi Black is on the verge of his comeback to AEW television. A vignette aired last night during Dynamite showing Julia Hart and others reacting in shock at the sight of Black, Brody King, and Buddy Murphy's dead bodies. They were wrapped in white cloth. Thereafter, Hart performed the last rites for the three bodies. As a voice in the background uttered the words, "What has become of us? What have you all done? Have you all abandoned your faith?" The narrator then suggested it was time to return to the ways of the old and worship death as the three bodies were laid to rest. While one body was set on fire, the other two were drowned and buried respectively. The video ended with the recital of a prayer, following which the dead bodies rose back to life. Black, of course, has been off AEW programming since the House of Black's loss to Sting, Darby Allin, and Miro at the All Out pay-per-view in September. After that match, Black took a bow to the crowd, hinting at his departure from the promotion. Subsequently, several reports suggested that Black had asked for his release from AEW, until Black himself refuted the reports via social media. Through a video message on September 26, Black assured fans they will see him in a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. and that he was only taking some time off to deal with issues in his personal life. Meanwhile, Matthews and King have been away since their loss to Sting and Allen at AEW Rampage Grand Slam on September 23rd. Subsequently, Matthews told a crowd at an indie show that he needed to go away for a while. Fueling reports, he too had asked for his release from AEW. However, he seemingly shot down those rumors via social media too. With Full Gear less than a few weeks away, it remains to be seen if the House of Black returns to AEW programming in the lead up to the promotion's final pay-per-view events of 2022. So the House of Black are on their way back, and all of that discussion about releases, conditional release, seemingly can be put to rest, and logically you would think that they're going to be in that Trios World Tag Team Championships picture. Saraya, we've got an update kind of on her in-ring future. She had an interview, a sit-down interview with Renee Paquette. It was meant to be an interview with Renee Paquette sitting down with both Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Renee and Saraya, but it didn't happen. Britt Baker refused to participate. Paquette asked a difficult question. She questioned Saraya about her in-ring competition status. Paquette clued an uninitiated fans in on Saraya's history of an injury, being told that due to spinal stenosis and decreased fluid around her spinal cord, competition could be unsafe. In the segment, Saraya noted she was prepared to announce her competition status tonight. However, there is still one more doctor she wants to consult with. It seems like she needs to lay her hands on Britt Baker in order to announce this monumental future feud properly, doesn't it? So it would appear that next week she's going to make that announcement. I would think that she announces next week that she's cleared and that she will be facing Britt Baker at Full Gear. I think that's the direction that they're going in with that one. Speaking of Full Gear, an interim Women's World Championship match has been announced. Toni Storm will face Jamie Hayter for the championship. Of course, Toni Storm is still the interim world champion. No update on the return of Thunder Rosa. She has said that she hopes to be back in the promotion come January. That's when we'll get this undisputed Women's World Championship match. But at Full Gear, we're going to get Storm versus Hayter. Hayter's got a ton of momentum, but I expect Storm to win that one. So there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.